This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so the reason for the change in venue is because Mia's and Pia's Wi-Fi was terrible. I really like the idea of doing these meetings at a place that has food, but if we don't get Wi-Fi that's consistent, there's really not much point. So last month's guest, for those who are with us, sorry. And he has said that he will come back again. Probably sometime early next year, we'll have Max back to be our guest again, where we can actually hear him and we can actually interact and everyone can talk. And sorry about that for everyone who tried to be involved in it. But thank you for joining us. We actually have some exciting news to share this month, but I think everyone basically knows everyone so far. Smaller crowd, but that's okay. We're getting towards the end of the year, and I realize the elections right now, everyone's glued to that. But I'm Kurt Lidke, and I'm the executive director of Klamath Film. And I also work for the newspaper. Some of you may not know Nick, though, since he's new to town. So Nick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Nick Alexander. I'm originally from the Medford area, graduate of Southern Oregon University. And yeah, just a couple months ago, I moved to Klamath Falls. Interestingly enough, right when I moved, like 2 weeks later, my first feature film, a documentary called Illegal, screened at the Klamath Film Festival, which was really a great experience overall. And we also won best feature film. So it was just been a really great transition over here to Klamath. And currently, I do different video marketing projects with business and other just video projects in general. And I'm excited to do some work here in Klamath Falls and maybe do some movie work as well.
And have you won any awards for your film work before?
So Illegal was my first feature film, and it of course couldn't have come at a more bizarre time to make a movie. But Illegal, despite the virus, it's been to 30 different film festivals across the U.S. I think it's won 10 awards and nominations so far, and we're working on distribution. So I feel like it's doing well. Of course, I wish we could have more in-person festivals, but it's still being seen regardless, like in virtual, still being seen.
And you have a screening upcoming here in Klamath.
Yeah, that's right. I actually I forgot about that. Yeah, we're gonna have another screening virtually through the public library, and so there's lots of opportunities. It's really neat because part of having virtual screenings, you're not limited by geography. You might be halfway across the country, but that's one of the benefits of virtual.
So that's going to be November 22nd. You can it's free to watch, and then afterwards Nick will be part of a Q&A. And so you can sign up for that for free through the library. There'll be an article in the newspaper tomorrow about it, and or at least there should be. I don't know, maybe it got bumped. I'll have to check the paper tonight. But if not, we will have an article about it. I'm the one who does all the arts and entertainment coverage. So
go Kurt.
Yeah.
Did you pick that date or the theater pick or the?
Yeah, so I spoke with I'm not sure who it was from the library, but they
Nap or Chandra or Sarah.
No. So yeah, we emailed and she gave me a few options, and I thought best to have it after the elections and more towards December than
On the anniversary of JFK's assassination.
that too. But
every day is
there's
something on every day at this point. So
did you attend the film school there?
So when I was at SOU, I attended their emerging media and visual arts program, which at the time they didn't have a film program, or I mean, for what it is today. When I was there, I remember they were discussing with Andrew Gay, like creating a new film program, which today they now have. But the EMD program was kind of unique because we did many forms of media, of, you know, whether it was photography, code, design, and you kind of made, you know, within that program, you just had a concentration, and like, for me, it was film. So it was like looking back, it was a great program. I think if I could go back to school, I would do the film program that I have now because it's just film, and you know that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I mean it was a good experience.
Yeah, it's a good program.
Yeah.
I've been able to act in 3 different projects over there. You got some real talent coming out of that school.
Yeah, I mean it's a great community to, you know, to.
Are they only teaching digital now?
When I was there, it was only digital. I mean, I think they had one day, like, you know, when you're like in one of the introductory classes, and they're like, oh, what is film? And they, you know, they present different forms, but from what I see,
In the history part of it.
right, and a little bit of philosophy, but like everything I did was always digital. I mean, the gear that they had at the Digital Media Center was digital. So, but yeah, that was cool.
It's a really well-equipped facility too.
Yeah.
We've had a great relationship with SOU. Andrew and I worked together for our August film camp, where we taught teens and also some adults some basics of filmmaking for a week. Mary Jane, who's on the call, was part of that camp. Very intensive week of basically teaching everyone several months of training and condensing it into a week's time. We got some really cool projects out of it, and everyone involved seemed to have fun with it. So let's bounce to the call. Mary Jane, why don't you introduce yourself? Or maybe Mary Jane stepped out. How about Michael?
Hi, everyone. I'm Michael
Nope.
or Mike.
They're
Either's
just
fine.
in unmuting.
Oh, what was that?
But I think my speaker went out.
Uh-oh.
Hang on a second, Michael.
Okay.
Yeah, we just heard them like a couple minutes ago. So.
Yeah, it has a tendency to kick itself off. Yeah, are you on the? There we go. Okay, it should be. You're stopping. Yeah, I can feel it. It's hard to tell with the map. There we go. Our sound should be working now. Check. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, there you are, Michael. Sorry about that.
No problem. I guess I'll start over. There's a little bit of feedback, so if I pause or stutter, it's because of that. So, hi everyone. I'm Mike or Michael. Either's fine. I'm currently a student at Oregon Tech under the professional writing program. I also interned with Klamath Film from about March to the end of this summer, culminating in some volunteer time during the Klamath Independent Film Festival. I'm now basically just finishing up my degree and, you know, trying to find the time to work on some creative projects, trying to get back into writing and all that, but things are extra busy since it's fully remote, so I'm just doing what I can.
Yep. Michael was a huge help. Michael did a lot of our graphics for our events all this year. And he's also very interested in virtual reality stuff. And he actually donated to us, to Klamath Film, a virtual reality headset that right now I'm in the middle of upgrading a PC to be compatible with it. And then for future events, when we do community events or things for kids, we'll have a virtual reality set that we can take out and demonstrate for people for like Third Thursdays and stuff like that. So thank you, Michael, for that. Curtis, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Curtis, and I'm chair of the board for Klamath Film. And I was going to come there tonight, but I was feeling a little ill, so I decided I think I'll just stay home. But I'm really curious to see our new meeting place there. It looks like a nice facility. So I
it's,
teach at Oregon Tech, but I'm also at Texas Tech University. So I'll spend time between Texas and Oregon. And I also run a music archive at Texas Tech that I started about 2 years ago. And I like to play music. Just hanging out in Klamath Falls. There we go. That's about all I got.
Thank you, sir. Hey, Cor, how are you doing? Hey, Chairman, welcome. We're just going through introductions right now. So, Court, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Court, member of the board. I used to be a technical filmmaker, and now I'm spending a lot more time on the music post-production side and doing some projects, and like Curtis, hanging out in Klamath Falls.
You want to explain real quick your Ghost Particle program that you're offering to Klamath Film members?
Oh, sure. Okay, well, we have a music production company that's more geared towards post-production, and it's made up of 4 geographically separated studios that we're networking together. And we thought it would be helpful for Klamath Film members to be able to access that and access the music libraries or scoring services or things like that, from us at a discount, or in some cases free. And we've got a website set up, and if you're a Klamath filmmaker, you can go there and contact us about it, and you can also see what services we offer.
Thanks, Court. Mary Jane, why don't you introduce yourself? And then we'll go around the room in here, and we'll get to our guest so he can get on with his night.
Okay, I finally got myself unmuted there. I'm Mary Jane. My husband and I have lived in Klamath Falls, outside of it, for about 10 years, and hard to believe. I have worked in the schools as a volunteer through the SMART program, and then in the special need classrooms in the district. Right now, I'm not doing either. Filling myself up with other things. I have written a couple shorts, and like Kurt said, I was involved in the film online seminar, and I enjoyed it very much. And although I didn't have a final film to share, I have a lot of good information to fall back on, and hopefully it will help me someday to produce a short. So not what else to say, I guess. Just glad to join the group, and I'm just here to soak it all in and learn.
Well, thank you, Mary Jane. Wayne, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Wayne Sweat. I'm an actor. I have produced and directed, but really acting is my love. I started doing that about 10 years ago, and basically a dare. Been in, I believe, 38 productions now, whether short films, plays, stage productions, or other, single event stage productions, feature films, commercials. Bound anytime I get a chance to act, I'm interested. Except for I had to turn one down last night. But other than that, nice to meet y'all.
Well, we may have work for you, which I will be announcing next year. We may keep you pretty busy. So, David, why don't you introduce yourself?
David Reed, actor, photographer, cinematographer. I've been in about 6 or 7 film productions. Been a stage actor. I work on props, costumes, and set pieces. Just finished a month long of working at the Monster Mac Insane Asylum as a device operator.
That was fun. It was really well done. Did anyone else get a chance to check out the haunted house in town? David was a part of that and it was sweet.
Operate the big giant hands, King Kong size hand. That scared people with it.
I was outside entertaining the crowd for about 2.5 hours. Finally got so cold I had to leave.
Oh, yeah, I told him we was bringing the heater because it was getting so cold out there. And we're all relieved that was all over. It was fun, but it's a lot of work.
We are working on a screening for, we're working on a screening of the film Frank and Zed, which was supposed to show at the film festival. And because of the circumstances of that film possibly gaining national distribution right now and being negotiated, we weren't able to actually show it. So I was trying to do it on November 13th because that's a Friday the 13th. I thought that would be a perfect tie-in for that movie. It's not going to happen, unfortunately, but we are looking at probably early 2021. And I have talked to the haunted house, Mac, and they're going to provide some of the props for when we actually do show that film here at the Ragland. So we'll get it decorated up with a bunch of spooky creatures and all sorts of crazy stuff. And the filmmaker really wants to come down and he said he'll bring all of the puppets with him. So we'll have a big Q&A and puppets and all sorts of crazy zany stuff. It's well worth seeing. I think the only one here who's, well, Curtis saw it and Michael saw it and Chairman saw it. Because Chairman, our guest tonight, was one of our judges for the Klamath Independent Film Festival. So I have one or two quick things of business to go through, Chairman, if that's cool, before we go into our Q&A. But do you want to introduce yourself real quick? Okay, Chairman lives in Los Angeles.
You want me to introduce myself?
Yeah, just real quick, and then I'll jump into some business for the organization, and we'll go into your whole segment.
Oh, okay. Well, my name is Chairman Barnes. I'm an actor and performer, originally from Virginia. Spent some time in the U.S. Air Force as in television production and radio. And then I've been here in Los Angeles for 30 some years now, close to 30 years now, yeah. And doing a lot of theater and as much film and television as the man will let me do.
Appreciate the time. Thanks, Chairman. Chairman also helped us out for our film camp this summer. He was one of the guests that every day, every session, we had a different guest come in to talk about what we've been talking about during each of those days. So Chairman joined us for one day right before all the kids started filming to talk about acting on camera versus acting on stage and subtleties in front of a camera, not to overdo things and whatnot, which was great. Thank you, Chairman, for all your help. So I think, Chairman, I think you're the only one who's joining us for the first time, but basically Klamath Film is a nonprofit that's been around for about 9 years now. We put on the annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. We are also the film liaison office for Klamath County, and there's been a whole lot of liaison work I've been doing. Since our film festival this year was online for the first time, we connected the online aspect to a Film in Klamath ad campaign. We had people from all across the country watch our film festival. And the big news that I have to share tonight is that in the time since our film festival, we have been approached by no less than 3 different film studios that now plan to shoot a feature film in Klamath Falls next year.
Wow.
The first one is going to be shot as early as January. I had a film crew that was in town about 2 weeks ago that I was location scouting with all over the county. That film's going to shoot probably later in the late summer or early fall. It's about a Crater Lake park ranger who goes vigilante a little bit after a child is kidnapped. So it's a little bit of a darker, twisted tale, kind of out in the woods thing. A film that's planning to shoot here in January or February, I'm meeting with the director and producer next week, is more of a psychological thriller with a multi-million-dollar budget and several very big name actors attached to it.
Is it going to be all shot at Crater Lake?
No, it'll be shot here in Klamath Falls. And the Crater Lake film will also have a lot of shooting in Klamath Falls. The third film, I still have to meet with the crew to get a little bit better sense of what it is, but it'll probably be a summer production. Again, a budget of around $1 million. And for context, Phoenix, Oregon was shot with only about $125,000. And so we will have probably the largest films ever shot in Klamath coming to here all next year as a direct result of the success of our film festival. I continue to work with these film production studios, and as things get closer, we'll start to have some casting calls and some crew calls, because the Oregon Film Office provides a lot of incentives, as well as any state in the country, for money spent locally on film productions. And the more that they hire local crew, hire local cast, the more they're going to get back in tax incentives. So a lot of that money is going to funnel through our community, which is fantastic.
So our film festival shot a spotlight on Klamath Falls that got Hollywood attention?
Exactly. And I skipped someone, I'm sorry, it's Art. Hey there. Hey. I didn't give you a chance to introduce yourself.
Oh, Art Belfi.
That's Art, okay. So in addition to those 3 feature films, there's also a television show that I've been talking to since spring of last year that has been trying to film an episode here, and they kept having to suspend, delay because of all the COVID stuff. Now they're hoping to shoot maybe next spring. So we're going to have at least 4 different productions coming to Klamath Falls next year, which is far and away the most that we've had. And that's fantastic, because that's a lot of money coming to our community. It's going to be a lot of work opportunities for everyone involved in Klamath Film. If you have any interest in being an extra, cast, working in crew, it's really going to be all hands on deck. We're probably going to have to pull people from Ashland and Medford as well to fill all the needs for these feature films. The other thing that I'm working on, and I'm going to share the screen for a minute here, is hang on. Here we go. Okay, hopefully everyone can see that on the call. That is something called the Oregon Film Trail, and they have been putting up markers all around the state for the last 3 years. This is done by the Oregon Film Office. I think we're incredibly fortunate to have the film office that we do. Having been in California for many years, that's how I know Chairman. The Oregon Film Office here are very proactive in not just supporting productions and helping them come together and establishing protocols for filming, but in marketing and tourism. They do a fantastic job. And this is one of their big efforts right now, is putting up historic markers all over the state of places where films were shot in Oregon. They just put up 2 of them in Ashland, one for the film Wild and one for the film Coraline, and there's 1 sign in Burns. Outside of that, all of them are either on the Oregon coast or in the Willamette Valley, and some along the Columbia River. There's almost nothing in Southern Oregon. So the office is very excited about the potential of putting this sign down here, because they're trying to market it as a themed tour that people can do throughout the state, kind of like how people visit the Pacific Crest Trail. They want people to be visiting the Oregon Film Trail too, going from site to site where movies were shot. And so I've been talking with the office for quite a few weeks now. Just this week alone, I've spoken with City Council, County Commissioners, and this morning I spoke to our Serve Optimist Club. I'm going to be talking with Rotary and Lions about this as well. We are actively working towards having a historic marker placed here in Klamath Falls on the Oregon Film Trail. My hope is by early next year we'll have one. We're targeting the film Phoenix, Oregon, even though we actually have
Brother Nature was.
Yeah, we have 11 feature films that we could potentially do. So going back, Klamath is actually a popular place to shoot during the silent movie era. And then we had some Westerns, and then things kind of fell off until the last couple of years with Brother Nature and then Phoenix, Oregon. Even though Phoenix, Oregon is the newest film that was shot here, I think the story behind it is so cool. The fact that it was a totally independent production, all hands on deck, local community thing. And through a total fluke, it was the #1 film in America. And then on top of that, it's also the lowest grossing #1 film in America in history, because it was also the only film in America when it came out. Chairman, kind of a fun story, this film that was shot here in 2018 was slated to go to theaters in March of this year, right when all the theaters shut down. So they launched in connection with going to theaters an online campaign, and their online campaign was technically the only film release in the country at that time, making it #1 in domestic box office. So we have the #1 film in America that was shot in Klamath Falls, and I think that's a pretty cool story that we can tell through a historic marker.
Tell us that again in like one brief summary sentence. Why is it?
So the film was going to come out just as all the theaters in the country were shut down due to COVID. But they had also connected a streaming on-demand paywall for it, and they were one of the first films to really do that. Now we see films coming out like crazy doing that.
Yeah.
But they were really the first ones to do that, to coincide with their film release, which made them the #1 film in America, because they were also the only film in America that was qualifying for box office revenue. Because at that time in mid-March, every theater got shut down.
Yeah.
And so the little film that was shot here was the only film that qualified for box office rankings. And so by default, we had the #1 film in America. It's also the lowest grossing film since records have been kept. And I think that's a pretty cool story that we can tell through a historic marker in town.
The #1 film in America, what is that? Like, is there a timeline for the month of March or?
No, it's tracked week by week.
Okay.
So they announce each week what is the #1 film. Yeah.
So what it took a week?
It was the #1 film for 1 week, and then other films jumped on to the streaming thing. But technically, we had the #1 film in America for 1 week because it was the only film in America that qualified for box office rankings.
Okay.
So I'm working on this. I'm hoping that maybe by January or February, we'll have this official. City Council loves it. Commissioners love it. Sir Optimists are on board. We're not taking money just yet, but we are taking pledge support from different groups, basically collecting letters to send off to the Oregon Film Office to tell them we have enough community support to move forward on this. So we are working on it on a historic marker. Yeah, wait.
There were 2 other films that I know of that were filmed in Southern Oregon. Brother Nature.
Yep, 2016.
Oh, okay. Couldn't see that. If you're going to put Phoenix, Oregon, and Klamath, we might encourage Brother Nature to have a sign up at Lake of the Woods, for example.
Yeah, and it's definitely an option that I'm working on. I'm also working with the Lake County Chamber of Commerce to get a marker in Fort Rock, because the film, the Western, The Way West, was shot out there in 1967. So it's not just in Klamath where I'm working on this. I'm trying to get multiple markers throughout Southern Oregon to try to enhance the tourism aspect that they're doing with this film trail.
Your place that was shot
At Fort Rock?
I mean, all these.
Oh, yeah. So all of these are the feature films that were shot in Oregon, at least the feature films that received theater releases. Now, the 1916 film no longer exists. The Stolen Pie is a lost film. Sadly, over 90% of all silent films that were made are no longer exist. They were made on nitrate film, which was basically solid nitroglycerin, and so they would randomly combust. And there's been a lot of vault fires, and honestly, a lot of studios in the early days didn't think about preservation. They looked at films as just another product to shove out the door. And so after a film made its tour, they'd oftentimes just destroy the prints. And so most of the silent film era is completely gone. Now, what's cool is that every now and then, a film that was thought lost ends up in the private collection somewhere, gets discovered in some vault or some attic, and they're able to digitize it and preserve it. But more and more, that era is gone. So I'm working on trying to get a Phoenix, Oregon marker, and we may try to pursue one in Lake of the Woods. So one up at Fort Rock for the Way West. So I just wanted to share that with people. I'll turn off the screen share now.
There's one other film too that I was just as an extra. Night Moves at Dakota.
Yes.
Dakota Fanning.
Yep. Yeah, it was shot over in Ashland.
Yeah.
Night Moves. It came out, what, 2016, 2015 when Night Moves came out? But that would be a Jackson, Josephine County thing. That wouldn't be a Klamath thing. That list was just Klamath County films. So those 11 were shot here locally in Klamath
I
County.
get the Old Tavern in Keno was also, Brother Nature was shot there.
Right, and that's also part of why that's on there. So before we jump into our guests, does anyone have anything they want to share? We have a couple events upcoming that I can announce, but I want to open up the floor if anyone else has other things that they want to talk about. We already talked about Nick's event, November 22nd. His documentary Illegal, which Chairman, you saw Nick's film. Nick actually won our award for Best Feature. And so our library locally is doing a screening of that on November 22nd. But does anyone else have stuff? Yeah, wait.
Yeah, the feature film that I acted in last year is now on Amazon. That's my first where I had a central role.
Okay.
But that was called One Step Ahead.
One Step Ahead, awesome.
Yeah.
Where are you playing?
I don't want to give away too much, but it's a central role. I play a genius that, yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Okay. One Step Ahead, Amazon.
Yeah.
Release date is 2020? This is 2019.
2020, I believe.
Okay. So in a little bit, we're going to watch a film that Wayne appears in. I hope everyone on the call will be able to watch it. It's under 5 minutes in length, but we'll check that out after we're done talking to Chairman. Couple quick announcements. The reason why we're doing this meeting at the Raglands isn't just because of better Wi-Fi. I basically been living at this theater all week because this Saturday, we have the Virtuosa Society concert happening here. Klamath Film is playing a key role. All my streaming gear is in the theater right now. All my cameras are set up in there. Saturday at 12:30 here at the Ragland is going to be the concert, and then we are live streaming that concert around the world. That's why the concert's happening at 12:30. So because it has a European connection, one of the performers is from Denmark, flew in just for the concert. So we set it so it'd be prime time viewing in Europe for everyone who wants to watch the live stream. So I produced a bunch of short films that are going to be showing during the concert. It's really a multimedia experience. There will be videos interlaced with live performance back and forth. And the theme of the concert, Virtuosa Society, it's two women, Katie Harmon, who lives here in Klamath, a former Miss America, who is a classically trained opera singer, and Christine Eggert, who has Southern Oregon ties but lives in Copenhagen. They perform music by female composers throughout the ages, so as early as the 1600s up to present day, and kind of tell a story behind each composer, telling why this person is important to history, maybe some of the biases that they had to overcome as far as gender and racial issues. And we made a bunch of short documentaries that are going to show during that, kind of profiling some of the different aspects of these women and their impact on music history. And so that's going to be live streamed this Saturday. Tickets are $35. You can also buy a live streaming ticket, and then after the live stream, it'll be available on demand behind a paywall as well. So we're sponsoring that. It's qualifying as an event for us, and that's important because we need that fourth event for the year in order to qualify for one of our grants. I will also be doing live streams coming up soon for KCC and for the Assistance League of Klamath Basin coming up in December. And we're just doing a ton of filming. Court, I have a ton of new footage for you for our shoot location directory. And so I have all that stuff on the shared drive to pass your way. I need to email it to you. So without any more bumbling from me, let me introduce our guest tonight. Chairman is a gentleman that I've known for probably about 20 years now. We're old, man. What the hell happened? So I met this guy while I lived in LA. We had similar tastes in music and we'd run into concerts a lot. He's appeared in countless plays and sometimes in commercials, television shows, a few films here and there, SAG member. And so I wanted to bring him in to kind of talk about his experience of being an actor in Hollywood, to kind of knock off the glitz and glamour of that to the harsh realities of the hell that is auditioning in LA and trying to get roles when everyone who lives in Los Angeles is either an actor or a musician or both. They may be serving food or pumping gas, but they have a headshot in their back pocket and a script ready to roll. and just an all-around good dude who was one of our awards judges for the Klamath Independent Film Festival this year. So first of all, Chairman, what did you think of our lineup of films for the Film Fest this year?
I felt they were really amazing. There was a great variety in style and.
Hang on a second, Chairman. My speaker keeps randomly shutting off.
Can you hear me now? How's that? Check 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3.
Yes, but it's coming through my. Here, let me see if I can click it. Okay.
How's that?
Can everyone hear it? It's off.
Is that okay?
Yeah, we can hear you, but it's a little quiet. I'm going to try to get my speaker back on.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, proceed.
Linked up. All right. So yeah, really a lot of fun with those films. I really enjoyed the younger. Is that getting feedback now? There we go.
No, I've got the speaker reconnected. We can hear you.
All right. I really enjoyed the entries from some of the younger filmmakers. Showed a lot of ingenuity and imagination. It's a lot of fun.
Well, thank you for taking the time out to watch all of those films. I know that can be kind of a slog to go through all those movies, but really appreciate your input on that. Nick was one of our filmmakers. It looks like he's the only one that's on our call that had a film in the festival. So, Chairman, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you saw in films based on your ratings, kind of what criteria you considered in terms of how you rated films.
One of the things that I primarily look for was stakes. You know, the laying out of the story in a dramatic fashion that would highlight some sort of a conflict or some sort of a goal, and portraying that in a way that that leaves you in some doubt as to what's going to happen, so that you have some satisfaction in the payoff at the end. So some of the films were more successful in that than others, but they were all very enjoyable to watch and had a very high, excuse me, high degree of production value. That was another one, was production value, looking at using the resources that you have at hand in order to create as polished a product as you can. That was one of the things about Frank and Zed, was just sort of cobbling together all that stuff to create this world, for their characters to inhabit. I noticed that a lot of the productions had drones. We're making extensive use of drone footage, maybe some a little too much, but it's interesting to see, what would pass for a helicopter shot in a high budget film, in something that's, a little bit more modestly budgeted.
Yeah. Frank and Zed was shot entirely in the filmmaker's garage over 6 years and funded entirely by Kickstarter.
Wow. All right, you're frozen. I might have to refresh here. Oh, there we go.
Hang on. But it doesn't look like it was shot in a garage.
No. Yeah, I mean that looked like maybe 2 or 3 stages where.
Okay, we're back. Sorry.
But yeah, that did look like about 2 or 3 stages where the sets there.
Right.
They had the town and the castle and the graveyard and really cool.
It was all just a garage with creative camera angles.
I did a short film a while back with some friends of mine. It's you can find it on Vimeo. It's called Topsy McGee versus the Sky Pirates. It's a steampunk adventure, silent film. But they built this basically the steering section of a dirigible inside of a downtown Los Angeles loft, a studio apartment. So the entire apartment was basically the steering cabin of the steampunk airship. It was very, really cool. Where there's a will, there's a way.
We'll get into questions here in a minute, but you want to talk maybe about some of your background and how you got into acting?
Sure. Well, I guess I was a very gregarious young child because from a very early age, all of my teachers were shoving me on stage for pageants and school plays and things like that. So that's just something that I grew up doing in school and in the community. And as I got older, my dad, who was in the Army, got stationed in upstate New York. And so we were living just outside of New York City, where, of course, is ground zero for the world of theater. And so I was exposed to a lot of theater in that area around the late 70s. And then as I got older and realized that, this is something that people do for a living, I thought, hey, why not act? Along the way, I discovered that I was not a great student, and my mom wanted me to go to college. So after kind of frittering away a year at Virginia Wesleyan College, I joined the Air Force to get money to go back to school. And I spent almost 6 years. I got trained in radio and television production. I spent 4 of those years in Colorado Springs, stationed at the Air Force Academy. And I was doing a lot of educational production there, also teaching a mass communications course as an enlisted instructor. And in my spare time, I would do stand-up comedy and also was involved in the local theater community there, doing mostly musicals and things like that, like Oliver, Kiss Me Kate, things like that. And then I spent a year overseas in Korea doing radio, did the late night, overnight radio shift from midnight to 3 a.m. doing requests for the soldiers and the families that were living over there. And then I spent the last year of my service here in Los Angeles. Back then, they had a hub here called the Armed Forces Radio and Television Broadcast Center. It was located here because back then you needed proximity to the industry they had in order to get the programming that we would feed overseas to the people who were stationed in Europe and Asia and the Middle East. So I spent a lot of time hanging tape and recording programming and refeeding a lot of news and stuff back overseas. A lot of CNN, ABC, CBS, NBC, and some Fox programming. Those were the big networks at the time, and this was during the first Gulf War. So we were feeding a lot of news programming, a lot of sports programming overseas, and then taping a lot of stuff that wasn't quite as time sensitive and putting that into crates and sending those overseas to be played out by local affiliates. And then finally, I got out, became a civilian in the local area, and tried to get into film and television. Again, doing a lot of theater. A lot of people don't know this about LA because because Hollywood just looms so large. There are more theaters per square mile in Los Angeles than probably anywhere else in the world. Tucked into garages, storefronts, old warehouses, church basements, you name it. Wherever you can fit a theater, there's a group of actors who are in there, and they're putting stuff on its feet just so they can, practice their art. And of course, in between, also trying to get work in film and television. So that's where we are now.
David, I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
What do you mean by hanging tape? What is that? Is it reverted to?
Oh, hanging tape. It just means Yeah, back when I was still this was still the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s. A lot of video programming was still captured on 1-inch tape. And so that was on reels about yay big, and you'd slap them up on the recording machine and thread them up and record whatever came over the satellite and then play it back later. We call that hanging tape.
Can you talk about some of the projects that you've worked on? I know you've been in a bunch of like TV commercials, and you've been extras in some TV shows, and you've done.
Yeah.
Have you lost count at this point? How many plays you've been in?
The plays, yeah. Just some of them, just I've forgotten about more of the plays that I've been in than I can remember. But one of the first things I did when I first moved to LA, I was in the movie. I was an extra in the movie Chaplin, and with Sir Richard Attenborough, and we were out in Pasadena at some estate that was passing. They were passing off as pick fair. The big massive party. I think it was the big party where Chaplin confronts the Nazi and everybody gets all huffy and everything. So it was a massive scene. There were lots of extras, and the assistant director had more extras really than he knew what to do with. And so he stationed me behind a huge planter. There was a huge planter between me and the camera. So you can't even see me in the film. But Maura Kelly walks right by me on her way to her car. But that was the very first thing I did in LA.
That's one of my all-time favorite films. I absolutely love the movie Chaplin. It does such a great job of showcasing Hollywood in the early silent film.
Yeah.
I'm such a sucker for silent film and that era. That's one of the few films that really captures it well.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So it's one of Robert Downey Jr.'s very best roles. I think he was brilliant in that movie.
Yeah.
So I know you've been an extra on some TV shows as well. You were on American Dreams for a bit, right?
That was not an extra. That was actually, I had a line on that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, actually, I got to speak on camera. I was actually on the very last episode they filmed. I shot my scenes the day after they got word they had been cut from the schedule. And so all during the day, people were getting wrapped from the series. And so I don't know if you know about this, but it is a tradition at the end of the season, at the end of the film shoot, at the end of the show, as people shoot their last scenes at the end, when the director says print, the assistant director says, and that is a wrap for on this production. And everybody gives them a round of applause as they head to their trailer to change back into their street clothes. And so I got to hear a lot of that day. It's kind of bittersweet, but everybody seemed to be in good spirits. And I got to work with I can't remember his name now. It's gonna drive me. It'll come to me later. What's that?
So that's me every day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what's that person's name?
Whitman.
So
you know what? IMDb will tell me.
okay. Well, while you IMDb that, because I know it's going to drive you nuts if you don't, we'll think of that the next thing we want to talk about here. Now, I see Chairman in a lot of. Oh, did you find it? I will see Chairman randomly on like TV commercials. And I know it's something where like the long cut of the commercial is like 3 minutes long, and then it's cut down to like 10 seconds, and it's just like Chairman giving a look in the background. I see him occasionally on TV shows in the background, so it's cool to kind of spot him. And you're someone who has managed to survive in an industry that has a tendency to chew up a lot of people and spit them out, myself included. I lasted a good 12 years before Los Angeles kicked me out the door. But we've seen a lot of people come and go with big Hollywood dreams. So what's been your secret to survival as trying to be a working actor in Los Angeles?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with the community around you. I happen to fall in with a really great group of people through my theater company, Sacred Fools, some of whom are people that you have heard of. Some of them are just now breaking through. One of our people, a guy named Brendan Hunt, is one of the co-creators of the show Ted Lasso on Apple TV. I've gotten to work with Amber Ruffin through my theater company, who is a writer for Seth Meyer now and has her own talk show on the Peacock streaming service for NBC. I've gotten to know French Stewart from Third Rock from the Sun, who is far and away.
Lose him for a second there.
Pardon?
Oh, wait, we might have lost.
Hello? Still there?
Oh, wait, yeah, sorry, you froze for a second, but you're back now.
Okay. What was the last thing you heard?
Yeah.
What? Okay, now I've lost you.
You were talking about the Peacock.
Oh, yes, okay.
Okay.
One of our company members is
So you're talking about Apple TV and the Peacock.
Leon Russum, who was the sheriff of Malibu in The Big Lebowski. Gotten to know French Stewart, who, by the way, is 10 times funnier than in person than he can get away with on TV. I'm serious. He's an amazing, funny guy. But all of those people that I've met and worked with, everybody from the people that, have gone on to gain some sort of notoriety, and even the people that are still struggling away just under the radar, they just have a really great sense of themselves and an ethic and a drive to keep going. That getting recognized for it is nice, but it's not the goal. It's just to do the work and just because you love it. So that I think is key. It's like if you're in this for the recognition, you're gonna go home disappointed. But if you're in it because you love the work and it doesn't matter whether or not you get a shiny trophy at the end of the day, then you'll stick around.
Can you talk a bit about the hell that is the audition process in Los Angeles, or even the hell of just even getting an audition, much less than the chance of getting a role?
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that if you stick around, you get an agent, and if you have an agent for long enough, you start getting auditions, and if you audition long enough, you start getting on people's radar, and then they start calling you in for more auditions. And really, you try not to think of the audition process as hell. You try to think of it as a time to play. You try not to think about the object. You try to think about just experiencing, making things real for yourself, and having fun in the room. Because if you have fun in the room, that kind of rubs off. That people feel like you're going to be somebody that you can spend 16 hours a day on a set with, and not go crazy.
I know you've done a whole lot more theater than you have TV and film or whatnot, but so either on stage or on screen, can you think of what's the weirdest direction you've been given by a director before?
Oh.
Or the craziest, the most insane on-set experience of direction that just made no sense?
Well, this was not on set. This was in an audition, was actually for a car. I think it was VW, or it might have been Audi or something like that, some German, European car. The direction was to do nothing, to just, they wanted to see something in your eyes that you were like thinking about your car and it was bringing you joy, but they didn't want to see a physical reaction. They just wanted something inside your eye that made them feel like, oh, I'm thinking of paradise or whatever, my car. And that was the weirdest one I can think of. Yeah.
Wayne, show us paradise in your eyes only. Show us paradise in your eyes only, Wayne.
Paradise?
Yeah, since you're a resident actor that's in the room right now. But no movement, no looks, no nothing. And Chairman, the performance. What
Yeah, dream machine is thinking
well,
He's kind of far away from the camera.
Wayne's performance of Paradise. Okay. Do you think that Wayne's Paradise in his eyes stands up for a Volkswagen commercial?
Well, it's kind of hard to tell from just because he's so far away from the camera, but I think he's got a shot.
There you go.
Does anyone have any questions for Chairman? Otherwise, it'll just be my buddy and I catching up on things of,
Chairman's first name or last name?
Well, Chairman is his stage name, which
Yeah,
everyone in LA kind of has a stage name, right?
Well, here's the problem. My real name is Chris Barnes. And there are already several Chris Barneses in the world of entertainment. There's Christopher Daniel Barnes, who is from the Brady Bunch movies. There's an improviser from Chicago named Chris Barnes, who is also part of Bonnie Hunt's repertory company of actors. There is a pro bowler named Chris Barnes. There is an English actor named Chris Barnes. So you see where this is going. Chairman is a name I picked up on a trip to China. And so I figured, well, that's going to be one that'll stick in people's minds. So I'll use that for my stage name.
Works for us. Anyone in house or anyone on the call have a question for Chairman?
I do. Anybody can go first.
Okay, go ahead, Art.
So two things. How's LA now? Because the news is so bad. You know,
Chairman, can you hear him?
What was the question?
How is LA because the news is so bad is the first question.
The environment.
Yeah, the environment right now.
Homelessness.
Are you talking about like the fires and stuff?
Well, that,
whatever.
yeah, I guess that's a general how are you doing and how is LA question.
Oh, okay. Well, there are so many prongs to that question. Fires, we're doing okay in the LA area right now, a little bit south of us, a little bit north of us. There are some fires that are still ongoing, and they're saying that we may not get any relief this year. Normally there is a lull in what they call the fire season because we do tend to get a little bit of rain from about late January into maybe March, April sometimes. And that may not happen this year. So the hills will get even drier and it will be even more hazardous. As far as COVID goes, things are okay-ish. I mean, there are still a lot of cases going on. However, the industry has actually responded and kind of taken the lead on trying to create safe work environments for people. They have a 3-zone system on the set. So there are people that can inhabit the zone C, which is basically the outside world.
That's the sound of my box turning off.
You got to get a new speaker, dude.
Well, no, actually, I think that was the slow network that we have here.
Okay. But so anyway, Zone C is the outside world. There's a middle zone, Zone B, where people can I'm hearing myself now back, so it's a little disorienting.
Sorry.
Yeah. So Zone B is where there's a lot of social distancing. There's testing, I believe, 3 times a week. And then there's Zone A, which is limited to only essential personnel on set, performers and crew. And those people get tested, I believe, every day or every other day. You walk around with badges and you mask up whenever you're not doing something that requires you to be unmasked. So they also have, there's a new industry that has sprung up in conjunction called COVID compliance officer, who is somebody who they hire to be on set to monitor and make sure that everybody is following the protocols. So that's how that's going.
And Art, you said you had the second question, or did he answer it?
So how about street camping, homelessness, street life?
Yeah, well, there are a lot of homeless. There are a lot of camps. People, they've a while back they relaxed the rules on being able to set up tents, and so there are a lot of tent communities that are cropping up from place to place. But there's also a program to get a lot of those people off the streets, called I think Project Room Key, where they're taking empty hotels and motel rooms, and the city is paying for them to house homeless people in those locations to create some sense of stability, so they can get back on the track towards recovery.
Okay, David.
While you were, before you got more established, did you ever have to choose between a working regular side job and going to an audition? And do you have any regrets about one or the other?
I'm really lucky. I've had a lot of jobs that allow me to actually go on auditions when I need to. For a while, I was a tour guide at Universal Studios, and they had a very liberal policy. Instead of having to do an entire shift, you could go out and what they call whip trams. So they would figure that on an average day, a tour guide would do 5 trams with breaks in between, filling up a 7-hour shift. So if you had an audition to go to, you could go in and say, hey, can I whip trams today? And they would put you on 5 trams back to back, get you out in like about 3 or 4 hours. And then you could go on with the rest of your day and go on your audition. I also worked for 13 years for E! Entertainment Television on the overnight shift, so that I could have my days free to go on auditions. And then now these days I'm working for a casting website. And so you can imagine they're very understanding when I do have an audition. But here's the interesting thing about auditions. COVID has actually facilitated a lot of this going forward. Online auditioning, self-tapes, and live video chat auditions, like in a scenario like this, have really exploded, because it's impossible to have, 50 to 100 actors in a small room waiting to go into an office to audition these days. So these days it isn't even necessary to travel for an audition. You can put yourself on tape and upload it to the casting director's website, and go about your business.
A lot of the people that I talked to in LA said that when the pandemic first started, basically everything except animation shut down.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting just a crap ton of animated movies next year to just fill the theaters and go on all of the streaming services. It was the only thing people could work on.
I mean,
what was it like?
if you look at television right now, you can see that it has already happened. I don't know if you watch this show, Holy Moly, on ABC. It's that miniature golf game show with Rob Riggle. COVID hit right in the middle of their production season, and so there are a lot of host segments that are actually animated with voiceover. There are commercials that you can kind of tell they probably had the actors record themselves at home, and they put it together from that. A lot of actors have their own green screens in their homes because of cell taping. And so if you watch commercials and stuff, you can see a lot of those situations where, I wonder why that person's in front of a green screen. Oh, it's because they shot themselves from home.
The contractor who makes green screens for personal homes probably need a bundle right now.
Oh, yeah. So what was it like trying to do what you do when the pandemic first started and basically all the theaters got shut down?
It's weird. A lot of the theaters, didn't have a plan for this. But I think a lot of them immediately tried to think of different ways that they could fill that gap to perform for their audiences that they built up. And so a lot of them moved to doing Zoom readings. You can see that there were a lot of organizations like Royal Shakespeare, the National Theatre in England, some of the houses in New York on Broadway. They had these archival copies of plays, and they were putting them out on YouTube for limited periods of time for people to watch. So it kind of forced a lot of theater companies to move into this technological world that maybe they hadn't intended to. So there's a lot of Zoom readings going on in the theater world right now in hopes of keeping that audience so that when things do open back up, they'll come back to the theater. Who knows how long that will take.
Yeah, Chairman, our film festival was actually, because this theater that we're in now, I know it doesn't look like a theater, we're in the conference room, but the Ross Ragland is still open because our COVID numbers here locally are so low that there's a protocol in Oregon that allows theaters to still operate with limited capacity audience. So that's why we have a concert happening Saturday that we're streaming.
Mm-hmm.
Our film festival ended up being the only one in the entire country that could show films in a theater this fall. So we did do our online side as well, but basically we were the one and only film festival in the entire country that was able to do a traditional sit down in a theater, which is kind of a full selling point.
Yeah.
Wayne, you had a question.
Yeah, I actually have two questions. The first one being, how do you prepare for an audition? And the second question is, are they doing live stage performances again?
Preparing for an audition. Well, basically, it starts with getting so the casting director will often send you.
We're lost for a little bit there.
Sorry, Chairman, can you repeat that again, please? We got a slow network warning.
Right. So for auditions, getting ready for auditions, you will get the script from the casting director. Very often it'll just be a scene, maybe two scenes. You won't get, if it's a feature film or a sitcom, you may not get the entire script. You just have to go with the script that the scenes that you have. And you sit down and you read through it a couple of times and you try and get a sense of who the character is. What do they want in this world? What do they want from the scene? And then you kind of break it down and you try and find out, little things. What do I say about myself? What are some of the things that other people say about me? How do other people relate to me in this scene that will tell me something about my social position, my personality? So you kind of break it down like that, and then you kind of go through and then you start working on the scene based on that. And then maybe you start digging into memorizing the lines. that kind of comes along late in the process. And you try and learn the lines so that you know them. You try not to get frozen into one way of doing it, so that when you get into the audition room, you can react to whatever is being thrown at you. They usually have a reader there with you, and that reader has been reading the same scenes over and over again, so they might have some way of doing it that you didn't think of. And so you have to be flexible and react to that, and try to have fun. So that's how I prepare for audition. What was the second question about theater?
Yeah, are they putting on live productions again? It would.
Not in LA.
Mentioning the social distancing on stage.
Yeah, LA is not doing live indoor theater. There is a group that has kind of commandeered a parking garage, and they are doing shows, socially distanced shows within the parking garage because it's open air. There's a lot of air circulation. It's a lower risk of transmission. And they start their, I believe they open this weekend with their production. It's mostly outdoors. I don't think we're going to have indoor theater productions in LA for maybe another 6 months or so, if that.
Have they tried Zooming theater productions with just the audience tuning in?
I'm sorry, what was the question again?
Have they tried Zooming theater productions with the audience tuning in online, was the question.
There have been some, but there tend to be more of like one-man show kind of things, because it's still too dangerous to get people together to perform in one space, as much as it is to get people together to watch something in person. So I have seen some one-person shows that are Zoom based, and that have been actually pretty good. But
what about medical dramas where everyone's wearing a mask anyways?
yeah, so get that.
Let's make sure that we give the people who are online a chance to ask questions too. Mary Jane, Michael, Curtis, or Court, do any of you have questions for Chairman?
Yeah, this is Court. I got a two-part question, if I may.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to ask about how you learned your, I guess this is technical, your acting technique going from stage to screen. You know, I mean, I directed some theater in college, and, you know, theater acting is big. Your gestures are big, your voice is big. Then you go and get in front of a camera, and the camera does a lot of that work for you, and it's hard for theater actors to learn to be small.
Well, it's actually, it's much easier to get someone to be smaller than it is to get someone who is not used to being big to be big. It's much harder the other way around. You can get the idea very quickly on set, especially when that camera is right there. You learn that you can't move your head. Otherwise you're going to be out of frame. And so you learn to kind of, to adjust your performance based on that proximity. And it's also a tempo thing. Commercials tend to be very fast. A commercial can be 10, 15 seconds. You've got to hit those beats, boom, 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 boom. You don't have time to watch the wheels turn. You have to hit that next milepost. Feature films tend to be a lot more drawn out. You can let a moment linger, because of course all of that is going to be changed in the editing room. As I remember a story about hearing about Mel Gibson on the set of one of the Lethal Weapon films. They were shooting one of the scenes where they blow up the hillside house.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and they're over cranking it so that it's gonna, you know, it's gonna look like it's, you know, going in glorious slow motion. And the director was it Donner? Richard Donner?
Yeah, that's done.
Yeah. Told Mel, so we're over cranking this, and you know, I want you to, you know, you can slow your reaction down so that it you know, can build. He's like, and Mel was like, yeah, I know, I did this. I did Mad Max. So yeah, so you know, you just pick things up, you know, you keep your mind open and you pick things up. It's and that's kind of how I learned to act. I just kind of, you know, I was a gregarious kid and they threw me on stage, and they like tell me, no, don't do it that way, do it that way. And then I realized, oh, that's a thing that I can do. I can put that in my little back pocket, and maybe next time I have something like that, I'll do that again. So that's how I learned.
And Court, did you have another question, or did Michael, Curtis, or Mary Jane have a question?
I have one more.
I can't really think of any questions at this time, but I'm definitely enjoying hearing the responses to the other questions.
Yeah, that's the same as me. I have no questions right now. I just enjoy all the conversation. Thank you.
Cool. Art has a question though.
So what are the local actors talking about now? I mean, like you and your small group, you know, on the big scale, on other productions, actors you're following, you know, whatever. What are you guys chatting about there in LA?
Well, actually, a lot of actors are talking about there's a big rift going on because of a lot of the stage productions that are being streamed. There's actually a big row going on between SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity, which is the stage actors union. SAG-AFTRA, I don't know if you know the history of SAG-AFTRA. The Screen Actors Guild was founded to advocate for wages and working conditions for motion picture actors specifically. And then the AFTRA, which is the American Federation of Radio and Television Actors, that union was founded specifically to advocate for actors and performers who worked in electronic media like radio, television, and recording. And then there is a third union, the Equity Union, which governs stage performances in larger theaters. There are other smaller performers unions, but those are the major ones. And years ago, SAG and AFTRA decided that there was so much overlap in their territories that they should merge and form a single union. And now they're the Equity and SAG-AFTRA are the two major performing unions. But SAG-AFTRA, since their traditional jurisdiction has been electronic media, which would cover streaming, are really upset that Equity is allowing those streams to go on without compensating the actors who are in them under the SAG-AFTRA agreement. And so they have there's a big back and forth between whether or not SAG is going to file a grievance to enjoin Equity from doing that anymore. Equity is saying, mind your own business. And so there's a lot of back and forth about that. The other thing is about agreements, because SAG-AFTRA has negotiated several low budget agreements and new agreements for what's called new media for things like Netflix and streaming platforms like Disney Plus and CBS All Access, the Peacock, and things like that.
Think that'll lead to a strike that they hash it out?
I don't know. It's just right now it's just angry letters back and forth. But
not the actors.
Oh, the actors are very, half of the actors are like, we need this. SAG-AFTRA should butt out, and another faction of actors is like SAG-AFTRA is well within their rights. Why don't we form? There's everybody's saying, why don't we just merge all the unions together anyway? And so,
Does
it's,
it affect you directly? Does it affect him?
Does it impact your work directly? The ongoing squabble?
not too much. I've kind of taken a back seat lately on performing, just to kind of concentrate on other things in my life. But I'm working on getting a voiceover career going. So I haven't really been focusing too much on live theater, but I do kind of keep my ear to the ground, as it were. I have a lot of friends who are still active out there in the theater world, and that is basically my circle of friends. So I do hear about it.
So all this, the voiceover work and animation voice work, has that increased in composition or gone down because of saturation?
It's really hard for me to tell. I would say that, it's given a lot of people the opportunity to work on their voiceover careers, because, they've just got their day job. They don't have their day jobs to go to. They can, sit around the house and putt around in the studio, respond to casting notices. Yeah, it's hard for me to say from my perspective, but I'm sure that there's been some flood in that, because of it's a viable venue for performing that doesn't require people all to be in the same room together.
Right. Nick, you haven't had a chance to ask me, Dave. Do you have anything you want to talk about with?
I mean, honestly, I just, I've done, most of my film experience has been behind the camera, but it's really fascinating just to hear, Chairman's, really his career and just kind of what's going on down in LA right now. I was curious about that too, just what protocol is taking to continue filmmaking, as we have really no clue how long the pandemic may last. So I don't have any other questions come to my mind. But
well, one thing that might be good to talk about, because Nick is mostly a director and Chairman, you're mostly an actor, but everyone kind of dabbles on different sides of things. So maybe from the director's standpoint, what is something that you wish you knew from actors that you were involved with, that maybe sometimes they wish that you get off their back, or maybe something that they would like you to do from a director standpoint, and then maybe Chairman, from the actor's standpoint, what are some things that a director can do to work better with actors?
Well, I always tend to work better with actors who have maybe just a little bit of performing experience, who maybe come from a performing background. Some directors, they may have grown up, just focusing on directing, learning lenses and lighting and composition, and not really focusing at all really on the performance aspect. And I think it really helps if a director maybe takes a couple of acting classes, maybe some improv or something like that, just to be familiar with the process, so that they can talk to actors more effectively on set. Of course, you get people like Clint Eastwood, who's like faster, slower, louder, softer. Yeah.
Well, I was now thinking about it. I've most of my work, especially the feature film that you saw, it was a documentary about an immigrant from Central America. And as much as I enjoy doing the documentary, at some point, hopefully sooner than later, I would like to transition to narrative. So I guess I just have a follow-up question, because what you said, Chairman, taking like an acting class and just improving like how to communicate with actors. I think that's dynamite. For me, transitioning from like documentary filmmaking to narrative, they're two different beasts as far as I think from the director's standpoint, telling for my film, it was very much run and gun. We had a plan, but a narrative is very different than a documentary. So, Chairman, if you have any advice, just transitioning from one genre of film to another, as the director, I would appreciate that advice.
I guess the one thing would be is to make sure that I want to really drive home this concept of stakes. It's like just make sure that the characters have something that they're pushing for, and that it's something that that the audience will find interesting. If somebody's like, if the story is about somebody who really wants a pudding cup, why do they want that pudding cup? What's interesting about them wanting that pudding cup? And framing it in a way that is going to generate the necessary tension to carry the story forward. There are a lot of films that kind of mistake action for stakes. It's like there's a car chase. It's exciting, but to what end? I mean, so things are going to blow up. Is why are they blowing up?
Chairman, can you kind of leading into that, can you talk about like maybe the difference between good direction and bad direction from the actor's standpoint?
Oh God. I really feel sorry for directors, because they have an almost impossible juggling act that they have to pull off. They have to know the technical aspects of the film, the story from start to finish. They have to know what everybody on the set does. Yeah, they has to know their jobs so that he knows what to ask them for on the day of. He's got to know, he's got to find the actors to make the story come to life. And then after everybody else goes home, he has to sit in a dark room with an editor and try and piece everything together and hope to God he got enough coverage. And make the story coherent and interesting to people. It's not that there anything that makes a bad director. It's just that so many things can go wrong. It's hard to be a good one.
I found probably the worst kind of directors are ones that are mean, or call you names.
Yeah, there's an asshole in every crowd.
Well, although there are some examples where they had to get a really great performance out of an actor that wasn't getting that, and they had to get that actor to such a condition and such an extreme that they had to kind of treat him in certain ways. It's not always the norm, certainly, and I agree, don't be a jerk.
Yeah.
But if you're putting an actor in like an extraordinary setting, sometimes you really need to get them into that right mindset, and that may mean being a little antagonistic or putting them in some weird circumstances if they need that added boost, right? I mean, I guess that depends on acting talents. And I'm sorry to cut you off, but just thinking throughout history of some of the documentaries I've seen on filmmaking, of some of the really cruel things that directors have done to actors, but in doing so got this unbelievable performance out of them. Maybe caused some psychological trauma in the process. But also got this amazing performance that otherwise maybe they would not have been able to get had they not tormented this person the way that they did, right?
Yeah.
Like the movie The Shining.
Great example.
Oh, that director just really screwed up Shelley Duvall.
Yeah, I heard that.
I just saw that last night. It was Kubrick, right?
Yeah.
Well, Kubrick, at the same time, Kubrick also made sure that the kid never realized he was in a horror film. He took great pains to protect him on set. He was never there on the things when on the days when the really gory stuff was going on, like the blood elevator and things like that. So, but yeah, I would have to agree. The worst directors are the ones who don't take the well-being of their crew and actors into consideration. That would probably be the worst of the directors. Yeah.
Also, you were commenting about the best directors, and you talked about taking an acting class, and I got to agree. My experience has been the best directors are also good actors.
Well, Chairman talked about how you need to know every role on set. That includes knowing the actors' roles too, right? I mean, by definition, if a director needs to know what the DP is doing and the sound guys and the grips down to the catering to be an effective director, they also need to know what to expect from each and every actor and what they're doing as well, right?
Not all directors are also actors, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some excellent directors who have never acted before. I just feel like it helps the actor if you can speak their language and tell them what you need.
Is there over direction though on that too, where you don't give a lot of free range for an actor to actually be creative within their character?
Yeah. Some directors have a very specific idea of how they want a line to be read, and they will give you a line reading. And they're gonna make the film in the editing room anyway. So sometimes you just like, yeah, all right, fine. Here's your reading.
Anyway, most of the voiceover work you do, is it mostly TV commercials, or is like somebody still making like film noir type of narrations?
Yeah, it's a lot of commercial work. There's a huge niche right now in books on tape. Audible, people listen to those on on their long commutes and things like that. Some animation. Other niches are voice menus. People pay for people to come in and do voice menus, do on hold announcements. So while you're on hold, they pay somebody to come in and read copy about what a great organization this is and how you can get involved and how you can donate and whatnot.
We've got about 20 minutes left, and we have a 5-minute film that Wayne was in that we're going to watch in a little bit. So I would say maybe last call for questions. If anyone on the call who hasn't had a chance to talk yet wants a chance to interact with Chairman, now would be the time. And if anyone else wants to get a final round in, or Chairman, if you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share, certainly. As I told you before, Klamath Film is a very eclectic group. We have professional filmmakers like Nick, professional actors like Wayne, down to people who just think movies are cool. And you got to meet some of the younger folks that are involved with us through our film camp. So it's a very eclectic mix of people from all different facets of the industry that come together. So if there's any advice or any thoughts that you'd like to share to folks, now would be the time. And if anyone has any specific questions, let's get them in and get a chance to watch Wayne's film.
I'd like to ask a quick question. So the creative process, it's different from musicians to actors to directors or whatever. I mean, there's the creative process. How do you come at it historically as an actor, the creative process to get ready for something? And coming out of these pandemic days, has it been altered, or are you finding yourself doing something different?
Well, as far as the creative process,
you did speak to like going to a live audition versus a virtual audition, so maybe that could be something to draw from.
Yeah, there is a certain amount of conviviality in an in-person audition. Where a lot of the studios, they're like these central locations where you go to audition, especially for commercials around town. One of them is called 200 South La Brea. Some of them have actually had to close down because of the pandemic. But there was one called Ocean Park West. There's the Village in Santa Monica. But these are kind of like the town square for actors. And so when you go there, you're not just going to audition, you're kind of going to kind of rub elbows with your friends and your colleagues. And so you get there and hopefully you've prepared beforehand so you don't have to have your face buried in the pages. And so you might look at the copy every, a couple of more times before you go in, but it's also a time to kind of catch up with people that you know, because when you're an actor and you look a certain way, other people who kind of look like this tend to go out for the same roles all the time. And so you get to know each other. And so rather than being a competitive kind of a thing, it's kind of, you kind of form something of a community. And so you're glad to see each other when you get out there and you say, hey, how's it going? Haven't seen you in a while. Or how's the wife and kids? And so you kind of catch up before you go in and you try and get the job. And you kind of miss that with auditioning online, because you don't get to do that hanging out that you used to.
Yeah. Any questions for Chairman? And we really appreciate your time today too. Thank you so much, Chairman, for giving us some time this evening. But anything from the room and house that you want to go over? How about on the call? Mary Jane, Michael, Curtis, Court, anything you guys want to ask?
No, I thought that was just a great description of what he said. Thank you for coming out tonight. This was a great break from all of the chaos that's going on right now to be able to talk about something that means something to us. So
cool.
We finally got an hour and a half of not watching CNN 24 hours a day right now.
Yeah, been trying to avoid the doom scrolling. So anyway, it's been a pleasure, folks. Glad to have met you all.
Thank you.
Thank
If you have
you.
any questions, Kurt has my email address. You can send them to me. If you want to write it down, chairman.barnes@gmail.com, and I'll try and get back to you if you have anything that comes to you later on.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Great to catch up with you as always. Good to see you, Glenn. Anytime that I have an excuse where we can actually, bullshit for a bit is always a good thing. On a strictly professional level, though, of course, right?
Of course, absolutely. All right. Good night, everybody.
Great to see you, buddy. Thanks for the time, man. Okay, so we have a film, and I think I prepped it to where if I screen share, we'll be able to see it. And I think people on the call will be able to hear it, but I can't guarantee that. So this film did just, Tom Cooley, who couldn't make it tonight, did post it on YouTube. And it is up on the Filming in Southern Oregon Facebook group. So I'm going to try this. And if those of you who are on the call can't hear it or can't see it, you can go to YouTube and watch it. So it's called Ghost Hunter of Cadbury, correct?
Yeah, the Ghost Hunters.
The Ghost Hunters of Cadbury. So just do a Google search for that, and it should come up if for some reason you can't hear it or can't see it. Okay, so is there anything that you want to preface or explain before we watch it?
It's easier for me to find it if I type in Tom Cooley and then Ghost Hunters of Cadbury. And Cooley is spelled C-O-O-L-E-Y. Basically, it's a horror comedy. Just a short little thing that we put together a couple weeks ago. Hopefully you enjoy it.
I did part of that.
Okay. So Curtis, Michael, Court, Mary Jane, if you don't see this, I apologize in advance, but I'm trying to work the tech here. But we'll at least get you to check it out. I haven't watched this yet. So I saw the link, but I've been so freakishly busy over the last couple of weeks that just, okay, so share screen.
I want to sing this on my tablet.
Really? I watch them on my big screen TV.
think Tom said he was gonna burn me a copy, never got around to doing it.
That's online.
Yeah, it's why I saw it was online. But only one of my TVs connects and it's slow connection.
The place, Charlie. Cadbury gravy gives me the creeps.
Yeah, thanks, so. Be careful. This road, George City, so.
He said it scared the hell out of him.
I heard that too. We need to be cautious.
What is that?
Yeah, I heard something.
What is it?
I don't know. It's coming from over there.
Do you think that old man George was right? But there's something here.
Maybe this is something. We need to get close. I heard something. I gotta go now, Mom. This gives me a willies. I wonder if it's haunted.
There's a little bit more dialogue.
What's the production on that? You're the prod pigeon.
I lit the fireworks, but it's just so windy, you couldn't even see the smoke. You're so boosted, you didn't even came in your own costume.
Oh, my George, Shirley!
It's funny how acted in a feature film, my second one, about 6 years ago. And I did one scene where we're running out of the building. There's alarms going off, and I'm running, trying to go help rescue a guy. And, you know, when you're breathing, you know, I was yelling out a comment. When you're breathing, you breathe from the diaphragm down here. Right? But I hadn't really been working much before then. I saw that looked like I had a barrel in my belly. And I started doing sit-ups. And so for like the last 6 years, I've been doing sit-ups. Until about a month ago, I had a medical issue and I stopped doing the sit-ups. And it's like,
It's back again. To everyone who hung around on the call, you didn't have to, but I appreciate it. I just realized I forgot to turn on loopback, which was the program that would have allowed you to hear everything. So I guarantee that you didn't hear it. I apologize. But you can find it on YouTube. Search Tom Cooley, The Ghost Hunters of Cadbury, Cadbury. So, David or Wayne, anything else you want to say about the film before we call it a night?
no, that's the shortest film I've. It was fun.
Any other comments from our crew online or in-house? Otherwise, we'll adjourn for the evening. If there's any networking opportunities, keep in mind, I am actively working on those feature films. As we get close to that, I will be in touch with people as there's casting calls and needs for extras and possible crews. So keep an ear open from me. There's going to be a lot happening coming up in the next couple months.
Where did the feature film start?
Sorry, what?
When did it start?
The first film is slated to start shooting in January, so it's coming up real soon.
When's our approximate Franken Zed?
I don't have a date yet. I'm hoping sometime in maybe January, February, but we're still working out a schedule with the filmmaker. But Nick's film, Illegal, is going to show again November 22nd at the library. So those of you who missed it at the film festival, you can check it out now. Curtis, you unmuted. Is there something you want to say?
Yeah, I was going to ask about the illegal screening. Is it also going to be a live stream or is it just at the library?
So it's an online thing they're doing through Zoom, right?
Yeah, for what I know, it's 3 p.m. November 22nd. I'm not aware of a in-person screening. I think it's just online, so I'm sure they'll have details in the upcoming weeks.
Yeah, basically they'll screen it over Zoom, and then everyone who's watching afterwards can interact with Nick for a conversation there.
Okay, can you send that out as like a social media post through Facebook and stuff like that as part of Klamath Film? Okay.
I wanted to get past the concert this weekend first because it's kind of been all hands on deck and all of my folks lately. But once that concert is over, I will get something up on our social media as well as I'll have stuff in the newspaper.
And I think that's good. You know, it's one event at a time. Let's support that one event and go to the next event. Yeah. Good though. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
The January film in January, we know ahead of time what roles they're going to be auditioning.
It's way too soon to know that right now. I mean, we're talking right now about location scouting and some of the early budget stuff and tax incentives from the state level. We're not to the point of that. When we do get to that point, working with the film production company, I will absolutely send out a blast and let everyone know where and when. But I wouldn't expect that until probably December or January. Right now, it's still kind of early in the process with them, even though that's not that long. That's a pretty short timeline. It's a pretty expedited production that they're working on. But part of the reason why they're coming here is the producer on it plans to retire in Klamath Falls in the next couple of years. They just bought some rentals here and they love the area and they want to come here and showcase it and bring some of their film connections here on a local level.
What's his name?
Her name is Lisa Bellin, and she just signed up to be a Klamath Film member the other day. So we've added some new people lately. Some new people come to town, including Nick here, just moved to town pretty recently. And we have film productions from LA that are now watching Klamath, so that's super exciting. We'll be very involved next year with film production happening here. So that's great. Thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good night,
That's
all.
very exciting news too. Glad to hear it.
Fall all over myself.
Right.
Are these giveaways?
Those are up for grabs.
My